Hello, I'm Pip Critten. The VVG Virtual Video Group has challenged its members to make a short film about how we got started in non-commercial filmmaking. Here's my journey over 60 years. My granddad's hobby was photography, and he gave me tips when I used my Kodak Brownie 127 still camera, and I was hooked. I then became interested in film when my parents bought a standard 8mm film camera. I was around 9 or 10 years of age, and of course they filmed family events like grandparents coming to stay and trips to the beach. There was a great thrill when the yellow envelope from Kodak arrived in the post with the results of your latest efforts. Then watching the film on a bedsheet taped to the wall, accompanied by the clattering sounds of the projector. By the time I was 10, I was practicing magic in comedy and had already made up my mind to be in the entertainment business when I grew up. And I suppose it was that creative urge that drove me to want to make proper films with a story to them. As film had no sound back then, I thought of a silent story of my young sister going to sleep and her toys coming to life. Was it real or was it a dream? I enlisted family members to make it happen under the very bright cine lights that were needed to film indoors in those days. In more recent years, I've had the cine films digitised for NLE editing, and I've had fun adding a soundtrack to them. While staying with family on holiday as a young boy, I was further inspired by an uncle who was a member of the Gloucester Filmmakers, and he had been involved in making a thriller. He would show the silent film while playing a 7-inch vinyl record of the James Bond theme, all very exciting to a young boy. I was delighted when Gloucester tracked down the silent film for me, and I did a re-editing, shortening it to a more contemporary style, and also constructed a soundtrack for it and used a piece of music that is very much in the style of the John Barry's original James Bond theme. When I was about 14, I filmed the erection of a circus tent, something that really fascinated me. As film was quite expensive, one had to be very selective in what you shot, but I didn't know what was going to happen. If I shot it and it wasn't interested, I'd wasted very expensive film. If I didn't shoot and missed something interesting, I'd kick myself. Oh, the joys of running gun filming. That was another film that I painstakingly created a soundtrack for, and I felt if no one asked, is that the original sound, then I'd done my job properly. I stopped making movie films for a while when my brother and I ran a photography business on a couple of holiday parks near Filey in Yorkshire. Then, after performing as an entertainer in the workmen's clubs in and around Leeds, I returned to Plymouth and joined the Plymouth Cine Group. I upgraded to super 8mm cameras, still silent at the time, and I asked two of my uncles and a friend to film my wedding in 1975. 6 rolls of film, if I remember, no expense was spared. The footage was edited on a cine editor by cutting the film into small strips and then gluing them back together with a film splicer. If I run it backwards, I could end up single. Umpteen years later, it was digitised and re-edited and a soundtrack added, giving it a new lease of life, enabling it to be viewed on our modern TVs. I shot many rolls of film on a honeymoon aboard a riverboat on the Thames, spending many weeks in the physical edit, snipping film into little bits, hanging them on pins just to rearrange them to make a story before splicing them all back together again with glue. Then along come VHS tape cameras connected by its umbilical cord to the heavy actual recorder. I made a few films using this cumbersome contraption, but the real problem came in making a useful film out of it. We didn't yet have non-linear editing on computers and had to do a tape-to-tape assemble edit, which was slow going, not frame accurate, and it degraded the picture quality each time it was copied. Adding additional sounds or music meant making another copy whilst running all the sounds in and trying to time it the best as one could, and it was somewhat tricky. Nonetheless, I persevered and made a few films using this method, and when we look back from what we have today, it was poor quality, but at the time we thought it was great. Over the years, I've made many films for my own pleasure, including, of course, my own children and their activities. I filmed one school skiing trip and had to lay the soundtrack on after the visual edit. One of my daughters assisted in running in music from record decks, tape recorders and music keyboards, having to carefully watch the screen to get the timing right, all done in a single take. It wasn't easy, but it was good fun. In 1996, I purchased a JVC GR-DV1, the first digital video camera to use mini DV tapes. Around £1,700 if my memory serves me right, about 11,500 in today's money. I used it on a family holiday to Florida with my two daughters who were in their teens. We made films of our time there. I made lots of short films of the attractions we visited. Once again, although it was cutting edge technology at the time, when we look back, it was better quality than the TV, but nothing like what we have today. The great bonus was the ability to import the footage in real time using a special IEEE 1394 or Firewire cable connected to a computer. So NLE editing was born, and I used very early editions of Premiere Pro. And there was no real-time preview. Everything had to be rendered, then re-rendered again for each change that was made. Next, I think I had a Panasonic camera for a while before buying the Sony PD150, which was being used by the BBC as broadcast cameras at the time. I loved this camera. It also recorded onto the new mini DV tapes in 4:3 ratio and had XLR mic inputs plus many other pro features. I used it while teaching at City College Plymouth, working with young people with intellectual differences. Some also had physical disabilities. With the students, we made many films from dramas to documentaries. I arranged for them to be presenters in the National Marine Aquarium, where Barnsley talked about his love for fish. At the PDSA, where a young lady learnt that being a vet was not all about cuddling kittens, and it was a little more gory than she had imagined.
Hello, my name is James Little here at the Plymouth Pavilions. And right behind me is the guys who do some training for the mats tonight.
We filmed at Professional Wrestling, where I made one man's dream come true to see his favourite sport live, and he even got to interview one of the wrestlers. A young lady made a visit to an MOD police station to interview the officers, see the boats, the bikes, and I even got her locked up.
Was impersonating a police officer. Okay.
One young man's obsession with trains took us to Exeter, where we missed our train back. As it turned out, he didn't know as much about platforms as he did about trains, and many, many more, including some commissions. The one that impressed me most, I think, was Ben Carroll, who in 2002 went to see the just-released film about Schmidt. He wrote a first-class review, which would have gained an A-star from any of my mainstream students. View Cinema agreed to loan me a theatre where we filmed his review straight to camera, where he was word perfect from memory. And I even got the distributors to send me the junket tape, which was intercut to make it seem that he had interviewed the directors and actors. People wondered how we'd managed that. I upgraded to a widescreen Sony camera. At this time, I was heavily involved with the All Stars, a theatre company for people with disabilities, where I was, among other things, doing all the sound, video inserts, backdrops for the shows, and anything else technical. My aim was to elevate the production values of their shows. Here's an extract from a video that was made for one of our Christmas shows.
Later on, if you wanna, we can dress like Madonna, put on some high shade and join the parade, walking around in women's underwear, lacy things, missing, didn't ask permission, wearing her clothes, silk pantyhose, walking around in women's underwear.
I created an All-Stars informational DVD which was widely distributed to assist public bodies, organisation and the public to understand some of the issues the members face, such as dealing with noisy neighbours, visiting a police station, returning goods to a shop,
I'm afraid there's been a spelling mistake in the word there.
It's a really good
doing
friendship.
sporting activities, and many, many more.
I tried it.
It was called Help Them to Help You, and we involved the police,
Last Monday?
council departments, organisations and business, who all gave their time for the cause. Alongside this, in 2011, I set up a project search programme at Derriford Hospital in Plymouth to support young adults with learning disabilities gain paid employment. Each year I would film the interns in their 3 different internships, interview them towards the end, and edit a video CV for each of them, showcasing the many talents that they had to offer employers. At 1 year's graduation, the manager of hotel services saw the film of one intern and instantly offered him a job, saying, "This young man is so keen and versatile, we cannot let him go." Kerching. I also managed to get the project featured on both ITV.
So everyone was pleased how I did, so as soon as I got the job, they were all pleased to see me.
And BBC regional news programmes.
Come into a very professional, very controlled working environment. They very quickly have to realise all the core skills that an employer would require.
As time went by, of course, I filmed the grandchildren at go-karting parties, riding lessons, a trip to Lapland, at the fairground, abseiling down a wall, visiting a marble factory, and even making one grandchild disappear. Teen Filmmakers Club has become my home club. I try and participate in as many of the challenges and competitions as I can, and have acted as camera operator, director of photography, and editor for some of our club projects. As for the future, I have a documentary in pre-production, but age and my disability has made filming much more difficult. I won't be climbing up ladders to get a good shot or laying on my belly unless I have a very clear plan of if and how I'm going to get back up again. I hadn't realised before I started making this film, it's been over 60 years that I've been involved in one way or another in filmmaking. And I've got a question for you. How many people like me have said, "That's the last piece of kit I need to buy. I'm really up to date now"? Yeah, right.